Hi, we're in beautiful downtown Edison. It's a gorgeous day. This exhibit is Julie Paschkis at IE Gallery. And it's up through the month of July. Let's go inside and we'll talk to Julie. Hi, so Julie just arrived. Julie, thanks for coming up from Seattle, making the drive up. It's a beautiful sunny day. And we were talking about what work she wanted to start talking about, and she's chosen, is this called Back in the Saddle?
It is, and this painting has sort of a funny, well, I guess it's not that funny. I was in my studio and a giant tree fell through it and crushed the studio, and after many months it was rebuilt, and when it was rebuilt it was all empty and bright and just this clean, beautiful space. And that's the first piece I did when I got back in the new space, and it's just how I felt, really optimistic and back in the saddle.
I thought for some reason when I first saw that title that it came from COVID being almost winding down and you being able to get back out again in the world.
That's its second purpose now. This one was actually done before COVID.
Okay, and this is so gouache on paper and the pinhole pricks.
Yes.
What do you use for those pinhole pricks?
Well, at first I was using a thumbtack, and it got really tiring to hold it, so I switched to using an awl. I brought one.
Oh, an awl, A-W-L.
Yes.
I was waiting for you to finish the sentence.
All the tools I use, an awl, A-W-L, which I brought, and I can show you. I can do a little.
Oh, cool. Okay. And then I'm looking at also collage, which is not new to you. It's kind of awesome to see these pieces that are combining a lot of different techniques that you've used over the years.
I love Mexico, and I just sort of think of like these really intense bright colors as being influenced by that time I spent there.
That's so gorgeous, yeah.
There's something about that technique of doing a collage as opposed to a painting that really makes it possible to sort of put these colors together. And I paint a whole bunch of sheets of paper, just colors that I like, and then I cut them up and keep fiddling with them till I find that's the blue that makes that pink pop. That's awesome. Sort of, there's a way of rearranging that's really fun.
It makes me think too, like here we have like almost not quite a stencil, but it feels kind of stencil-like with that white. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. They're really sort of simple graphic shapes, which are just a very flat and outliney. And I do work with stencils, so I think that influences my brain, even though this one isn't a stencil. But
that's what I noticed sitting in the gallery. Like this one is.
That is a stencil.
This is stencil, and again gouache, and it's 4 sheets of paper stitched together.
Yeah, I do a lot of stuff with textiles, and I think of these as paper quilts.
Oh yeah.
And so the black is stenciled onto the white paper, and then all the other colors are just painted on.
And what's this one called? It's the Square Dance. Square Dance, yeah. I'm going to take us back for 1 second to these pieces because I want to ask you something about the crocodile. I see so many crocodiles in this work. No.
I didn't even realize that someone said to me, "What's with all the crocodiles?"
See, I always keep mentioning that to people that come through too. Let's get very Jungian here and tell me about the crocodiles.
Yeah, they're really interesting creatures, and they're kind of scary, but they're also really beautiful. All the patterns that they have in them, and yeah, I guess I think of them as sort of scary and threatening, but in a lot of the paintings, they're just part of that world, and they're not hurting the person. They're sort of in the mix.
Yeah. Somebody else asked me if they were like representing COVID. You'd be surprised that kind of ideas people, but
Yeah, I guess not my experience of COVID. And this painting also was done before COVID.
Oh, yeah.
This one, I think almost every show I've ever done, I've had a Peaceable Kingdom in it, which is the lion and the lamb together.
Yeah.
And I was raised Quaker, and I remember that as a child seeing the Peaceable Kingdom paintings, and just so.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that was part of their, that's how, I don't know that much about Quakers.
Well, there was a famous painter, and God, I'm getting senile here, I'm blanking out on his name, and he did a bazillion pictures of the Peaceable Kingdom, and they're really, really beautiful, and they're in the Philadelphia Art Museum, and there was one in our Quaker meeting when we grew up.
Yeah.
Can you remember his name?
No, but I go to that. But I go to that museum all the time.
Yeah,
I'm back there. Yeah,
and they're just these wonderful paintings, and he's illustrating the Bible verse that the lion shall lie down with the lamb, and I just I think it's the same idea of reconciling opposites. So it's like the crocodile with the girl, or the lion and the lamb, or the skeleton and the mermaid. They're just these opposites.
Okay, that gives me a different perspective. Let's look for a minute at the pen and ink, and we'll look at a few of these. So these are very intricately painted in pen and ink, mixed with some gouache.
I do all the black and white first, and then add the colors later. And this was definitely a result of COVID, that I took an online calligraphy class from.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the website was The Postman Knocks with Lindsay Bugby. And it wasn't painting, it was just lettering, but using a dip pen, and she talks a lot about how with the upstroke you get the thin line, and with the downstroke you get the thick line. And it was just really.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that. That's cool.
It was like you just download the lessons and do them yourself. It's not like there's any interaction, but I really enjoyed it. And then I got into exploring the different pen nibs and inks, and so this whole series grew out of playing with the pens.
Well, I'm going to walk us through the series of the pen and ink, and this is Orinka.
Yeah.
Now, does she appear occasionally in your work, or?
Well, that was her first appearance, and it was, I think I had started this painting with her having a human head, and then I was like, oh no, she's the sun.
Oh.
And then I imagined all these different adventures for her. So.
Oh, I see. And what does Orinka mean?
It means sun in Finnish.
In Finnish?
Yeah. Okay. Which I do not speak Finnish, but
you are not of Finnish descent, right?
No, but I did live in Norway for a year at a formative age, and I feel like that comes out in my work a lot, even though I am not Norwegian.
Yeah, and people make a little reference to kind of a little bit of the Nordic feel of some of these, but also really Eastern, what we used to call Eastern European.
Mm-hmm. I think I do have some of that in my bones.
You do.
But I went to a folk high school in Norway in the 70s when I was young, and I feel like it's still there.
Yeah.
The things I saw then.
And so these were done during COVID?
Yes.
I love the many, many feet.
That came out of, there was, I have friends, Carl Bauer and Nancy Harris, and they lived in Barcelona for a while, and they brought home this print of La Quaresma, which is this figure that has to do with Lent, and she has all these legs, I think 7, and...
Oh, wow.
No, Quaresma must be 8, or anyway, it has to do with Lent, and at the end they burn her. It's kind of a horrible story, but I always love the figure with all the different feet, and it's just... I think it looks really cool, and it's just also the idea that she's on the go, she's just doing things. And so in this some of Orinko, like in this one she has lots of feet, and that one she has lots of feet, but in that one she just has 2 feet, but she has some power
She's on
assist.
turtles, so they're moving slow.
Yeah.
People take so much. I mean, some people think this is because we had to go slower during COVID.
We did, and I loved it. I mean,
I know.
loved that part of it, and now things are speeding up again, and it's a little bit overwhelming. I'm trying to somehow maintain that.
I know, I'm trying to
Slowly.
protect that too. Like, I'm gonna look at, let's go over here and look at the very last of the pen and ink. So these are the last
This
few.
was the very last one. I think maybe because things are starting to warm up and it just felt so summery. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I thought there's just all these suns and it isn't clear where
And she's barefoot.
she's just part of the summer
Yeah.
bounty.
Yeah. And Fisher Moon's so beautiful. You've had a good response of the black background too. People seem to love that.
Yeah, that one has a real fairy tale feel for a fairy tale that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Is this a new kind of patterning for you that's on the trees and the fish, or is this just something that kind of has moved through?
Well, I've always used lots and lots of pattern. I love pattern,
Yeah.
and I'm a dweller in the village of too much a stan. But
Of too much of what?
too much. I just think like Uzbekistan, like too much a stan. Anyway, I like a lot. I like pattern and I like color, and I think the patterns look different because I'm using the dip pen as opposed to a brush or
Yeah.
an awl. But
And then you have two pieces where it's all the pattern is pretty much cut paper and pinholes like that.
yeah, I did a previous show that was still lifes. I did a whole bunch of still life objects like teapots and mugs and cups and things like that, and they were all done with this pokey.
Oh, cool.
I call it poke art. I don't know.
Poke
I'm sure there's a better word for
I
it.
like that.
So then these paintings, these were definitely during COVID that I did these. I mean,
Yeah.
I loved having all that time not going anywhere. but
It's
just
for me.
sort of
It's hard to
keeping-
adjust to this back to almost normal. Is
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn this off for a second. Let's get
Okay.
settled in to do. Okay, so we're at the table here in the gallery, and Julie's going to do a demonstration for us. I'll keep this on the paper.
Yes. So this is a dip pen, and it has a Nico G nib, which you can buy from Paper Ink Arts.
What did you call it?
Nico, Nikko-G is the kind of nib, like different,
Oh, a nib,
it's a
okay.
flexible nib. So I think as everything moves towards, computers and tablets, there's just something really appealing about the old school techniques where you use your hand.
Yeah.
And this is Ziller ink, Ziller Glossy Black. It's waterproof ink so that the gouache
Can you show me the
won't run.
text on it? Whoop. Okay.
And you dip your pen in, tap it off a little bit, and then when you go push up, you get a thin line, and when you push down, you get a thin line. So all of those pen and ink pieces were done.
Okay, so you're not putting different pressure. It's simply whether you're going up or down.
No, you are also putting pressure. So like if I went up and then down, each line's a little bit different. That's what I love about doing this. Is
This reminds me of when I did the Louise Kikuchi did talked about Sumi.
and then like you can do kind of little calligraphic things like that. There's just something really fun about this.
Oh, yeah. So you
Fine.
start with that, and then you fill in where you want to when you're painting with gouache.
Right, and when the nib splits, so you get a little thing like that. I think it's called railroad
I'll
tracks.
go in a little further.
Then you can
closer.
then you go back, and
I
so-
see.
it's just noodling and doodling. And so like when I did those paintings that I showed you, I'd have an idea of the big things, but the little, what I think they're not tattoos, but like sort of tattoo-like things inside the birds and
Yes, yeah.
on the backs of the crocodile.
Yeah.
I didn't have those drawn out in any way. I just doodled until
Until they're filled in.
yeah, and A bazillion years ago, I went to a fortune teller who, I guess he was a palm reader, and he said that I always needed to be making art, and that if I didn't, I would suffer from depression.
Oh.
And it's so true. It's like even when I go a day without using my hands, I sort of just get unmoored, and so I guess it isn't.
I can understand that.
Yeah, it's just what gives meaning to my life and order to my days. So.
And there's a really like a wonderful brain-hand connection that we don't even really know about that much scientifically, you know, but it's always been a part of us.
I agree, and I also think like your hands have ideas as well. It isn't just my brain telling my hands
I like
what to
that
do.
phrase. Yeah.
The hands too. So
Yeah.
that's how the ink works. And then I also was going to just show you a little bit about the and normally I would have water there and I'd clean the nibless water.
Do you want water?
Yeah, I'll clean it after.
Okay.
It won't hurt for a minute. But so then the other poke pieces. This is the awl.
I'm gonna come around this way, I guess.
Okay. So you just poke. This is just like an exercise mat from TJ Maxx, but it really makes it easy.
I like using that for that purpose instead.
And again, it's patterns, and you can poke on one side, or you can poke on the other side.
Awesome.
And so it's just gradually, with time, you can make really rich and beautiful patterns.
Wow.
And if you want a bigger hole, you can just really shove the awl in until...
So you just have that one tool. You don't have different size tools that you use.
I have a couple awls, one really tiny one and one that gets a little bit fatter, but basically I don't use a lot of variation. I used to use just a push pin or nails, and they would rip the paper a little bit, and there was something I liked about that, but it was, they were also so dull that it's easier to use sharp tools. So.
That is so cool.
And you can combine the things. And what's cool about the poking is light. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
It's light and texture. And then it can also be narrative depending on how many holes you poke.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
That's great to see. I couldn't imagine what you use. So I'd like to also just spend a minute before we finish up here talking about these four on the back wall, or first wall. And correct me if I've got it wrong, but they were commissioned for the Seattle Transit.
Yes, they're the light rail station it's going to be in downtown Redmond. They commissioned a bunch of artists. They're going to have so much art at the station. It's going to be amazing. And I did. I'm going to have 5 pieces there. Each one. I can't remember if it's 5 feet by 10 feet or 6 feet by 12 feet. I think 6 feet by 12 feet each.
Okay, 6 by 12. That's what I thought.
Yeah, huge.
Huge, like almost this whole, not quite the whole wall, but each one will be about that big.
Yes, and they'll be 10 feet up in the air.
Oh,
so
wow.
They have a bunch of different artists, and they're using 2 different people to do all the construction. The artists are just doing the designs, and then the people that commission us, the Sound Transit folks, are arranging the production.
The
and
contractors.
Yeah, and I think half the pieces are going to be enamel panels, and half are going to be mosaics that Tieton Mosaic is doing.
So these are, and yours are going to be mosaics made in Tieton?
Well, originally they wanted me to do three enamel panels and 2 mosaics, and so this one, and this one were going to be enamel panels, and then the mosaics that I designed were black and white, and so they started working on them, and were really excited about how they were turning out, and they asked if I would redesign the enamel panels to be mosaics. So that's why I could have them up here to sell. This one is going to be a black and white version of it, is already in process for a mosaic, and these three I'm about to redesign to be mosaic. So they're going to be have color, but I'm going to do them not with this technique, because like the little pin pricks won't translate to
that's what I was going to
tile.
ask you about, the little pin pricks,
Yeah.
and that just gets kind of overlooked.
Yeah, I'm going to keep the ideas, but they're going to be done with it keeping in mind the process of the mosaics, which means that they will be in some places simplified or altered to work as a mosaic.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go up to Tieton, and I highly recommend anyone who can take a field trip to that little town. It's super exciting, and bicycle constellation one in black and white.
And this is so awesome, the trees and the collage and that piece, and the shoes.
I was really careful too, like, okay, here she's sitting there thinking like, which shoes shall I wear? And she's got the bare feet, and and she looking at the shoes. And in this one, if you went back to the first one, all the shoes that are in the tree are all
So
the shoes on her feet.
she figured it out.
She figured it out, and you can find the shoes that she's wearing in the tree.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then in this one, she's got the same shoes on.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's kind of her journey.
Oh,
And-
that's cool.
And in this one, the guy is handing her the boat. She's trying to decide how to go by boat or wheel or whatever. And he's giving her the boat, and then the boat is inside her.
Oh, yeah.
So she's internalized that journey.
Oh, yeah,
In
yeah.
this one, so they're all connected. And this one I did after they were already working on the black and white mosaic thing, but I just loved the idea, so I wanted to do it as the collage thing, and so I put in a Skagit barn, because
Oh,
it's
that's,
going to be up here.
you know, I didn't notice that's carried through all four of them. It starts out as a tree, and then it's a boat, then it's a barn, that pattern,
Yeah.
wood pattern. Wow. Well, this has been great, Julie. Do you have anything you want to add to it?
Oh, just thank you for having me here. It's just it's a beautiful space with you, a beautiful person in this beautiful town.
Oh,
so,
thank you. And your beautiful work is here now too.
Lot
And
of
it's
beauty.
great because I get to see you and Jill a lot. So,
Yeah.
okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.